You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with Janine Kelbach. Janine holds a BSN RNC-OB. She is a wife, mother of 2 boys and 2 Great Danes, and I know at least 1 kitty. The author of the book, Entrepreneurs, 30-plus nurses turn into business owners and share their secrets to success. She has been a freelance health content writer since 2013 and is a CEO of Right Nurse. Janine hosts the Savvy Scribe Podcast. I don't know why I couldn't get that out. A podcast for healthcare professionals who want to build a profitable writing business. Her team of RN writers help healthcare companies with their content and social needs. Wow, I am loving what you do, Janine. So hats off to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here today. And I've kind of been obsessively following you because we had an appointment before, so I do all my research and then we bumped it out. But then I kind of became a little obsessed following you. So yay.
I love it.
One of the things we do here on the show is we always ask our guests if they'll share a story of hope because we want to make sure that we're inspiring others and letting them know there's hope in the world. So do you mind doing that?
Yeah, so when you asked me about a story of hope, I am trying to think about for relation to my business and, you know, the why of kind of why I went into this, but a story of hope in the same, where I had patients and as nurses, you know, we all have patients that don't know much about their bodies. And in my background, I'm labor and delivery nurse, and I had a girl who was like 24 years old, looked normal, act normal, had a boyfriend who seemed pretty normal. And I went to straight cath her one day, and she said, well, aren't you going to poke the baby's head? And I said, well, honey, no, that's a different hole. That's not, you know, anatomically, we have 3 holes. And she goes, oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought the pee and vaginal area were the same spot. And I said, that to me is to, I hope to inspire others to read content, to educate themselves, to know beyond the age of 24 that parts of your body that you should know. Her boyfriend had no idea either, which was even more surprising, I guess, to me. But, you know, as a story of hope to help others and, you know, talking to writers and nurses who want to make a difference is education. Let's hope our patients know where to find reputable sources for education and can help educate themselves, and we can help educate them as well.
You know what? There are more of those people than you would think.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of a generation that I was raised in where we didn't use proper words. Like we didn't have a vagina. We had a hoo-ha.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
And so like we just did not discuss those things, and our parents didn't pass it down to us like what those were, which when you think about it is really a disservice to your children to not use that proper language, get them comfortable with the body parts, like an elbow. Nobody's like, it's your,
Right.
you know, bendy
Don't
thing.
talk about your elbow.
It's your bendy thing, right? It's all part of our bodies, and we need to understand what they're called and how they work. So I love that you brought that up because honestly, I see things like that every single day. Single day. And so I think that's a little scary one. And there's no judgment if you just weren't taught. It's not your fault.
You're like, is they serious right now? Like, who's trying to play a joke of it? Oh, no, they are serious. They don't know whatever they're asking you about. And, you know, I guess it's a good thing to be in that position to say, you know, let me take this opportunity to tell you
what that is. I love it. So I want you to tell us a little bit about how that moved you into doing what you're doing now. I'm kind of guessing with the writing, you're educating.
Yeah, so that truly, when I, not only that patient story, but there's so many things about the like birthing experience that many patients are just so scared. They're so scared to come into labor and delivery. They don't know what to expect. They think it's like the TV, you know, everything on TV, or they hear their mom's horror story or their best friend's horror story. So I always tell patients, you have your own story. Everybody gets their own story when they leave today. And every story with every child is going to be different. And when I first started writing, the purpose was to educate patients, to give them that evidence-based resources, because people were doing things or hearing things or reading things that were just false information. And the World Wide Web is huge. And without the reputable sources, they go on these blogs that make no sense, and they have no evidence and why they are doing what they're doing. And it comes down to is their health and an unborn baby's health that, you get very concerned about. So that's truly what led me into writing at first. And now it's just really developed into a whole market of different healthcare companies that are helping nurse leaders, that are helping, on the tech side of things, that are helping with telemedicine, helping underserved communities. So it's really just a way to be a nurse in a different way.
I love it. I'm going to share like a little embarrassing story about me, but I had my daughter when I was 17. And I remember when no one told me, and I kept, to the minute I was delivering, I kept thinking, how are they getting this out?
Yeah.
I had no idea what was about to happen to my body. My mom was very angry with me, so she didn't want to share anything. And I didn't want to ask because I figured at some point someone will tell me what my job is, right? So I didn't ask. And it was very traumatic. As a matter of fact, it was so traumatic that I thought that this was a normal procedure, but I ended up delivering my first daughter, who's 42 now. I ended up delivering her strapped. Like literally they had put these little restraints, and I don't even know why, because I don't think I ever was like, I didn't get up and walk away. And I kept thinking, I'm so claustrophobic every time I had another child. So we have 4 now. But I kept thinking, I don't want to ever be tied like that. That was like strapped down. And I realized—
What did you wait till the last 2 seconds before you birthed the other 3 to go to the hospital?
Well, let me tell you, that was the only doctor that delivered any babies. I delivered in hallways. Yes, I guess I did, but I don't realize that that was part of it. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be why.
Maybe I should be a therapist. Early.
No, I just deliver very quickly. So it had nothing to do with that. But I didn't have a doctor deliver any of the others. I made great relationships with the nurses that did though. And I never got a refund. For those of you who pay your doctor and you, for some reason you deliver and they're not there, you still get a bill.
Yeah, and it should go to the nurse, not the doctor.
Totally should go for the nurse. It's like you have a due date. They know it's coming. But yes.
When you mentioned that, I always think about like the patients that come in that are very young and scared, and even the people in their 30s, they're scared. Everybody's scared to have a baby because in reality, how are they getting that thing out of you? It's a 7+ pound human being, and it's natural. No, there's nothing natural about it. It's just
that is what I heard. Don't worry, it'll do it itself. You don't have to do anything. And I honestly had, like, this sounds really stupid now knowing what I know and being married to a doctor and having my ex as a doctor. I have 2 daughters that are doctors, and they're going to hear this and laugh their head off, but I had no idea. Nobody told me, don't worry, we're here with you. It's all natural. I had no idea what I was in for. And
well, there you go, healthcare providers.
Yeah, somebody should say when a young girl comes in and says, how does this baby getting out? Red flag.
Right. Well, if we get them, I always tell my new nurses, I'm like, you get the person at the most vulnerable time in their life. Like, I don't care if you're the president's daughter, Britney Spears, or a homeless crack addict. You are vulnerable in this situation. There's many patients I've had that have been shackled to the bed because they're in prison or whatever, and the sheriff brings them in. They're like, are you okay? She's very violent. I'm like, unshackle the poor, like, let her go. Like, I'm fine. Like, she is so vulnerable right now. Let her, like, not be shackled to a bed.
Exactly.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they like tied you down. That is like traumatic for me to even think about.
You have no idea what it was like delivering a baby 42 years ago. It was a completely different process. I mean, it was my first experience in a hospital, in a surgical, it looked like a surgical room anyway, which is, I think, where they used to deliver babies, is like, it looked like a surgical room. And so it was very scary. I remember it was very traumatic, and I waited 7 more years before I had another baby. Obviously, I was young, but I was
older, but yeah.
And one of the answers from the doctor when I asked him, how is the baby getting here, was the same way it got in. I'm thinking, he's joking, right? Like
that, yeah.
Look at my tummy.
You're not funny.
Yes. What do you mean the same way you got in? Okay, so yes, it's scary, and we do need to educate ourselves and not be embarrassed of those words. And like, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to use them in dinner conversation unless someone brings it up and you use
Yes.
the proper word. So 100%. I would love to ask you about this book that you wrote because it sounds really inspiring. So is it you and a bunch of other different writers?
No, it's actually just me who wrote, and I interviewed like 30 plus nurses who went into business for themselves. And it started with a client I was writing for. He wanted, the site doesn't exist anymore, but he wanted just a compilation of different nurse business owners and like how they got to where they were and da da da. And I was like, we should turn this into a book. He goes, Janine, I don't have time, turn it into a book. It's, we did like the legal process behind everything. I'm like, all right. So I did. I made very good connections with a lot of those nurses, and really just the way the book is structured, I made it for a nurse to read. So, in the beginning, it has like what degree you need, how much you'll be making, da, da, da. And then it has the head to toe assessment of nurse writer, of podcaster, of whatever that, title is that they are. And it was a lot of fun to write, and it's just a compilation of everybody in the book. And then after that, of course, so many people reach out and like, I'm a nurse entrepreneur too. I am too. And I'm like, oh man, do I have to do a second edition? Like, because now I have all these people that came forward, and I'm like, that'd be fun to do. I haven't had time yet, but you never know what the future will bring. But it was a lot of fun to write.
I love that they're stepping out. And tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So my podcast, I started because so many nurses were coming to me saying like, I want to write on the side. I think that'd be a great thing, because I'll say one thing about nursing versus writing, you just use a different part of your brain. You don't get to be creative at work. You have to be very clinical and very, a lot of clinical thinking, a lot of critical thinking, and then you don't really get to go outside the box too much. So when you get to write, you kind of get to dive into that other part of your brain, and a lot of nurses like it because you get to fulfill that side. It's stress. Sure, every job has stress, but it's a different kind of stress. And I always say nobody's going to die if you don't write an article. Like, it is what it is. So that's what the podcast derived from, is because I was getting a lot of questions from nurses on how to do it. And, so that's kind of what the podcast is. It helps nurses start and maintain like a health writing profitable business.
I love that. And so are they writing about like healthcare issues, holistic maybe options, things like
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
I love that.
So savvynursewriter.com is the website I have, and we have like a membership where nurses go in there and they go through the course and they ask questions, and we do workshops with different marketing people, business people. And in there we do a lot of that like mindset coaching, because a lot of nurses are like, how can I be a writer? I'm a nurse. And it's a different, I don't have a degree in this. How do I do it? And I've written now for doing it many years, not just like web articles. You can write ebooks, you can write white papers for companies that are trying. It just depends on who the audience is. A lot of it is web writing, and that's what I tell most nurses to start with, because it's the easiest. You just kind of write a blog article, and it's really structured kind of thinking. But yeah, I mean, you can really evolve it into books and the copywriting, email marketing, all the things that encompass the word writing can be, there's so many different types.
Well, I believe in educating the world. And I know that I say this all the time, education is power. And it really is. The more we know about ourselves and our healthcare journey or our mental wealth journey, the better our futures look for not only us, but the generations we bring behind us. So I love that you're out there educating the world like that. And then you took an army on with you. So yay.
Yeah.
That's great. So tell us
it's something no one can take away from you, your education. And that's, something I've always lived by, because it's something you'll always own, in your head, in your degrees, whatever. And everything is learnable in a sense, a lot of time these days. I mean, yeah, we all have our degrees here and there, but a skill like writing that's exactly what it is. And people are like, how am I going to be a writer? I'm a nurse. It's a skill. It's a skill you develop over time. When you were first a nurse and you walked into that patient's room, you were way slower than you are now. And, that's how I try and inspire people. The more you do it, the better you'll be, the faster you'll be. And then eventually the more money you'll make.
So our market for listeners is all mostly all in health and wellness, holistic side of, the health and wellness business. And I know that they're telling me all the time, I would love to blog, because we have a blogging site where we post people's blogs, and they get 2 to 11,000 hits on them, depending on the blog content. But blogging is powerful. Putting your story out in writing, especially digitally, is powerful. It's evergreen, right? It will
Yes.
always be there. So if you wrote on vitamin C, and one day I wake up and I'm like, oh man, my doctor says I need more vitamin C, and I type that into the internet, your blog's going to pop up and hit me in the face years later. So I think it's not only is it incredibly powerful for you to educate, but it's a big responsibility, right? That we're putting out good information for people to get their fingers on, instead of maybe using the wrong terms for our body parts, or
Yes.
explaining what that looks like. So that poor little girl's going to go home, I know, and Google.
I know, right? Well, and the fact that, like, what if you didn't even know what vitamin C was? Your doctor, and you're just like, okay, I'll get more vitamin C, because you're just appeasing the doctor because you're scared, you're vulnerable, you don't know what to ask, and you go home and you Google it. You want to get the right information. You don't want to get, some fluff that's out there. But yeah, it's a very powerful field to be in.
I not only do I agree, when I was sick almost 10 years ago, I sat at my computer and I typed in the words desperate for health answers, looking for options in the holistic side of medicine. And if it wasn't for all of you beautiful writers getting out there and putting the information out for me, I have no doubt I would not be here today. So you guys keep putting that great information out. And there's so many people that I work with that, like, I'm so busy, I cannot write. I just can't wrap my brain around it. But there's people like you and the team of warriors that you have behind you that can come in and help you with that, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that's exactly what we do at companies. They'll be like, actually, there's one company that's coming to mind right now that they're like, our CEO wants content and she's so busy, but she has so many ideas. I'm like, bring us on. We'll help you. We just need one phone call. If I can get her for about 90 minutes, we can have your whole, like, first 3 months planned out. And from there, it's like streamlined in a sense. So it's a very nice thought leadership for her because she wants to get herself known and whatnot. But especially in the holistic alternative medicine work, I love that nurses are making their voice known on that platform, and doctors, because it's like taboo to think that medicinal is the only way to go and that there's no holistic, room at all. It's just because we don't know enough. We don't have the evidence based of, you know, studies of the science, but there's so much out there that's coming up that we haven't had enough experience with yet. So when you do have evidence, use it. And who's to say you can use both. I like, using both in practice. If there's an essential oil that helps you relax and you need some Xanax because that's the way you're a very extremely anxious person, you have some trauma in your life, it's okay. It's okay to use both, to know the safe way to do things.
Like, I'm essential oil junkie. And even now, my
Love it.
doctor, if I call him with something, he's like, did you try the peppermint oil first? Because he knows how I am. Like, I would not be calling you if I hadn't. Like,
Yes.
I have tried that. I've tried this. And so then he'll give me a couple more holistic options. He knows that I will use modern medicine. I'm so grateful to that science, but I use it
Yes.
as like my last choice, right? Is
Yeah.
that. But I know it's there for me, and I'm super grateful that it is.
Absolutely. And there's a reason it's, there. It does work. But so do some essential oils, so do some herbs and such. So you just have to be open-minded, I think, a lot about that information.
I will. And if it was a doctor who said, that's silly, get over here and let me write you this prescription, he would not be my doctor. I mean, that would be
Exactly.
my choice.
Exactly.
But maybe a doctor knows you well enough to say that because he knows, like, no, you need this heart medication and an oil isn't going to help you, right? Those are apples and oranges. So in that case, he should be telling you that.
Exactly.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Are you still working as a nurse? Or are you mostly just working now as an entrepreneur, selling your stories and writing your books and doing your podcast?
So I definitely could just do that, but there's something about me. My hospital I work for is 5 minutes from my house, and I just still love delivering babies. So I go to work now because I just want to. I still feel I am inspired by the young nurses, and I want to help them. be the best nurse they can be at the bedside. And I love just being part of people's lives, like, their first child. Like it's so, every single birth to me is still so exciting. So I don't even know how many children I've delivered in the last 15 years, but it never gets old. So I love it. So I have not left yet. I work PRN, so I only have to work like twice in a 6-week period. I still pick up on call, but it's nothing compared to like a full-time job. So it's nice.
I
It's a
love
different mindset to go to work because I want to instead of because I have to.
I love that you're still nursing, because we don't have enough good nurses. And honestly, every time I've been sick, it's the nurses save me. Like they're the ones beside your bed every day. They're the ones conveying, they're your
advocacy.
voice.
Yeah.
They're your voice. Right. And if you aren't respectful to them, they're still your voice, right? They understand.
Your voice.
Still your voice. But I mean, you need to show them the respect, because they are your voice between the doctor. They're the ones there, and they see the changes in you. They hear you every day saying what's going on, and they know when there's a change, right? And the doctor walks in for 5 minutes and he's like, no, everything looks fine, and walks out. And the nurse is like, yeah, no.
I don't think so. Yeah. Come back in here.
Yeah. So I think you guys do an amazing job. I'm going to ask you a question about COVID, because I know a lot of our listeners who haven't had babies during COVID are thinking like, what has that change look like?
On the nursing side, you'll just see us in masks a lot, but we're, sometimes if you're coming in, you're delivering a kid, on the floor, it's the same experience. We just have a mask on. Like it hasn't changed that much. Our patients are still coming first. Every patient is on our unit COVID tested before labor begins. If they're already in labor, we don't shove a Q-tip up your nose when you're trying to breathe. Like we don't do that. But we're still, doing the social distancing at our desk. We're garbing up for sure if patient has COVID. I've seen some pregnant women with some severe cases of COVID. It's not fun. But hopefully a lot of scared patients because of the pandemic. They're very nervous, very understandable. But I'll tell you, most hospitals I know are only letting one visitor, and it's usually a significant other or support person, whoever that might be. And I thought at first patients were very upset. They're like, oh, I need my mom here. And my aunt said she was coming, da, da, da. But now that it's been a year, I will tell you that patients love it. The only people they miss are their other children. So the other children can't come up and see the new baby. So it really discourages them. But I'll tell you, a lot of patients are like, I don't have to like go take a shower and do my makeup because my father-in-law is coming up to see the like that to them is like, oh, I don't have to get ready. Like I can just breastfeed and go to sleep. Or, I had a 16-hour long labor in the middle of the night. I just want to rest. So they have actually ended up liking it a lot. It gives the nurses chances to be more at the bedside because we're the only ones they have besides their significant other. So it's a very intimate experience, more than it used to be, because we used to have the whole city in there, having a baby because they could have whoever they wanted. So it was very, very, a lot of people at sometimes. So
I never experienced that. It was just me and my husband. I never had masses. My mom one time came in and argued with me. I just threw her out.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I've had like patients like say like, can my brother stay in here? And I'm like, sure.
My father-in-law, his cousins.
Yeah. And then you'll see like 3 men and then like a lady, and you're like, okay, I don't know.
I will say that I have 7 grandbabies and I did not miss one of their births. And so I get it. Like,
yes, for the mother-in-laws, it's rough. For the mothers, it's rough.
For all my daughters having the babies. So if it was my son-in-law or daughter-in-law, I probably would be respectful of her. Yes. But my daughters, like, there was no way. No.
But I've tried to make it a very good experience, with the limits that we have. We have a very open parking lot, like many hospitals. So I'll put a white folder on the window so they know which room we're in. And the family will park oftentimes, like in the parking lot, we'll do like the Simba with the baby, like Lion King. I've done that a lot. It's great. The patients, and we do tons. Thank God we're in the time of FaceTime, Zoom, all the things. So we still had a lot of audience, on Zoom, which is fine. Whatever patients want, it's up to them. But it is nice for them not to have the camaraderie of so many people coming up to visit them, because as mothers and as fathers, like we're very, like we want to please, or thank you for coming. Like we know people don't mean to bother us. They want to see the baby. They want to wish us luck, but they mean well. Is that what I always tell my patients? They mean well. I know you're exhausted. Just know they mean well. They're coming up right now. Just know they mean well. She's like, okay, I won't. I'm just so tired. I know. They mean well.
I know they used to have, every time one of my girls had one and they had people there, the nurse would say, you just do this or
Yep.
something like that, and it'll be on me. We'll
Yep.
clear the
I'll be
room.
the bad guy. Yep.
And yeah, we'll be the bad guy. You don't have to worry about it. We'll say, nope, this is policy, and out they go. And
Well, the most uncomfortable thing is when she's having a long labor and the family's like, oh, when's the baby coming? And she
I
feels
know.
like she's on stage just sitting in bed. And you're like,
or they're
oh,
sitting
honey.
there eating a cheeseburger and you haven't had
Yes,
food
right
for
in front
30
of her,
hours,
yes.
you know, and like, it's just craziness. People just don't
That
think.
gets your nurses talking at the desk. When family members are eating cheeseburgers, we walk out and we go, can you believe that they're eating a cheeseburger in front of her?
Are telling you, like, you haven't progressed at all. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong? What's and then they ask the nurse, like we're God, well, when's the baby coming? If I knew, I would tell you the lottery numbers if I knew those.
Janine, I absolutely love your energy, and I can tell you're of service, and I can tell you're in the right profession, because not only you're taking care of your patients, but you know how to take care of that family that's putting the little
The full
note in the
care.
room.
Yeah.
Like you're a caregiver, like 100% through and through. Where can people find you when they want to locate you and get your book, listen to your podcast, connect with you for writing? Because I know there's a lot of people with beautiful messages. They're influencers. They need to get it out. And like me, I don't have time, but I have to produce a lot of content. So I have a writer, and all I do is talk it into a thing real quickly, send it to them, and they turn it into beautiful content.
Yep. So for writing needs, Write RN, right? Like you're writing something, RN, like registered nurse.net is our agency. And then if you want to become a writer and you're a nurse and you're interested in that side, savvynursewriter.com is that website. And our podcast is listed right on there. And you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, we're also going to put everything in the show notes so you can connect really easily with her. Janine, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.